Hi everyone, Sharifa here at ST Law Office, and I am coming on to talk to you about certain topics today. So, I am going to talk about how to apply for legal status in the United States when you don't have that conventional option, right? Like for example, the family member or the employer to sponsor you. And there are four different ways I'm going to talk about. But first of all, I want to let you know that my priority is your question. So go ahead and drop your questions in the comments, and I will answer your immigration question as they come in. And I will basically stop what I'm doing to do that. So don't feel, apprehensive about typing your questions as I'm talking, because that's what I want you to do, okay? And I'll stop what I'm doing to answer your questions. So let's go ahead and get started. And I just want to start talking about the U visa. So the U visa is a way that an undocumented individual that is in the United States can obtain legal status. And it is for individuals who have been the victim of a qualifying crime, so a certain type of crime. And my rule of thumb, though, is that you need to be open minded, right? Because this doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a crime like murder or something very, very severe. It could, as long as is a crime that resulted in your abuse or your trauma, then this could qualify for the U visa. So my rule of thumb is if you have been the victim of any kind of crime, the first thing you should do is get legal advice to see if you will qualify for the U visa, right? Because you could very well qualify for it. So examples of qualifying U visa crimes would be domestic violence. It could be fraud. It could be kidnapping. It could be assault. It could be battery. So those are just examples. It's not an exclusive list though of crimes, right? It could be depend on what happened to you. And one of the other requirements of the U visa is that you cooperate with law enforcement during the investigation. That doesn't mean that you have to show evidence that you testified in court. It could mean that you made a statement that the police felt that you were cooperative or you were available to cooperate with them to help them throughout the investigation. And that could be through a police report or a statement to the police. For example, now, if you have been the victim of domestic violence, even stalking, and you can show that you reported this to the police were investigating, then this could be a U visa. Now, the downside of the U visa is that it's taking very long. Right now, there's about a 10-year wait list for the U visa. However, because it's taking so long, they have what's called deferred action for those on the wait list. And what that means is that those on the wait list can qualify to apply for their work permit while the application process is pending. So that means that if this is your only option, it is still a good option for you. So keep that in mind. Then and now who qualifies for this along with you? Do family members qualify with you? And yes, they do. And you would be surprised how many can qualify. So if you are under 21, then you can qualify for, if you're under 21, you qualify, your parents qualify, your siblings under 18 can qualify, your spouse can qualify, and your children can qualify. So 5 different sets of immigrant relatives can qualify for this. If you're over 21, your spouse and your children can qualify for this. So not only that, that is another benefit, and they do also qualify for the work permit once they get deferred action along with you. The T visa, and that was the U visa that I just described. Um, Now, with the T visa, that is for the victims that of sex and labor trafficking, sex or labor trafficking. And when we think of trafficking, I know there's this common misconception that trafficking involves people who are chained up, in a basement somewhere and forced to do acts against their will. And it's not necessarily that. It could be that you were coerced to come to the United States to work for someone who promised you the moon and the stars. They promised you to get your papers for you. They promised that they would pay you a certain amount, and that did not happen. Or they threatened you, and when you came here, they threatened you and maybe skipped out on your payments, told you that if you took advantage of your undocumented status and told you that, well, if you went against them in any way, that they would report you to ICE and get you deported. These are examples of how you could qualify for the T visa. If you were even here and someone hired you, and for example, they knew that you were undocumented, or even if they didn't know that you're undocumented, but they treated you horribly, and they made you work under horrible conditions, they violated you, they abused you, and not necessarily just abuse physically. It could be they abuse you in different ways, because workers do have rights, and you cannot treat an employee terribly. I mean, people have rights, and so it's the same with you. If your rights have been violated by an employer, that is a potential T visa qualification, and the T visa has the same benefits. So you would and the T visa right now, no wait list, and you would be able to get a work permit, work for 4 years upon approval, work and live in the US for 4 years. And then if 3 of those years you lived on with the T visa, you could adjust status for the permanent resident. Of course, you'd have to make sure you qualify for the green card in other ways, but it is a potential pathway to the green card. So I just want to mention to anybody joining in that my priority is your question. So go ahead, I'm monitoring the comments. So as soon as you have a question, it doesn't have to be related to the topic I'm talking about today. Just drop your question in the comment box and I'll answer your immigration related question. And it could be really anything. So just know that I'm talking about some non-conventional ways to obtain your papers, your legal papers in the United States if you don't have a relative or you don't have a employer to help you to obtain legal status. So the next topic that I'm going to talk about is the VAWA. So and I also, let's go back a little to the T visa. So with the T visa, relatives do qualify. If you're under 21, it's going to be parents, siblings under 18, um, spouse, and children who can qualify for the T visa along with you. Now, with the VAWA, those who qualify are those who have U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident parents, or a spouse, or a U.S. citizen son or daughter 21 and over, and they're subjecting you to mistreatment. If you have been subject to mistreatment, you could qualify by this U.S. Citizen or legal permanent resident relative. You could qualify for a green card and apply for it by yourself without involving that relative. And while it's processing in the United States, you could get a work permit and move forward, move along with your life until it is approved, all being well. Now, with this, it doesn't have to involve physical abuse. It could be verbal, emotional, financial abuse. You know, you on top of that, you could be here, with unlawful presence. That means that you've been living here without your papers for over 6 months. You could be here, you could have previously been deported. You could have overstayed your visa or entered illegally, and you can still stay here in the United States with that and apply for your green card. So keep that in mind. It is something that is very flexible, and it basically takes down all the roadblocks for victims of mistreatment in a relationship to get legal status and get the help they need to alleviate that stress that they're going through. I do want to mention that if you have any questions, please go ahead and drop your questions in the comment box. I'm talking about non-conventional ways to obtain your legal status in the United States if you don't have a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident family member or an employer to help you. So I talked about the U visa, the T visa, so the victims of crimes, the U visa for victims of crimes, the T visa for victims of sex or labor trafficking. The VAWA is for basically abused spouse, parent, or child. And then the last one is asylum. So if you are the member of a particular social group and you're being persecuted in your country, you're afraid to go back to your country because you know that you will be targeted because of who you are and the group that you're a part of, then this is also a potential path to your legal papers and eventual green card. My rule of thumb is if you're afraid to go back to your country because you're faced with violence or threats or economic oppression, then and you're a part of a particular group that is facing this kind of thing in your country, get legal advice, schedule a consultation in order to see if you can qualify for asylum. Now, there are strict deadlines. If you enter the country and say that persecution or that the threats that was happening in your country when you came, you have 1 year from the date of entry to apply for asylum. If you have been here for a while and now you have realized that you will be threatened if you return to your country because of changed circumstances in your country, then definitely get started because you want to make sure that you apply as soon as you know those changes have happened and you're threatened in your country. So that is asylum. Now, with asylum, once the asylum is approved, you live on it in the United States for 5 years, then you can apply for your green card after those 5 years. So it is a path to a green card as well. But so just keep that in mind and make sure that you get the legal help. My rule of thumb here is if you have been the victim of a crime, if you've been coerced or defrauded or physically restrained, to work for someone or to commit acts against your will, and that then you could qualify for your legal status in the United States. If you are an abused spouse, you're an abused parent, you're an abused child, so of a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, spouse, parent, or son and daughter 21 and over, this is a way to directly apply for the green card without involving them. It's a completely confidential process. I do want to mention that if you even remember, if you're in your 20s now and you remember your U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident parent abused you, subjected you to verbal abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, and that went from you being a minor into your 20s and you're under 25, you can still go ahead and apply for the green card without you involving them. So get legal advice, schedule a consultation, and get the legal advice you need to see if you qualify for these benefits. that's all I have for today with about the non-conventional ways to apply for legal status in the United States if you don't have the usual route of getting your legal papers through your family member or through an employer. I don't see any questions today, but as usual, I'm gonna keep showing up. And if I know definitely for sure I'm here every Friday at 6:30 every Friday to answer your immigration questions. And I try to hop on now and then to answer your questions throughout the week. So I'm gonna keep trying to do that as often as I can. So what you can do is subscribe if you're on YouTube, follow me if you're on Facebook, and then you will get notification as soon as I go live. And then you can drop your questions in the comments and I'll answer them. And you can ask about anything you want. I know that if you're going through the immigration process, you definitely have those nagging immigration questions. It could be really small, like how long will this be, how long is the processing time for this, or something of that sort. So go ahead and make sure that you drop that question and see if you can get some reassurance. All right. So that's it. Happy New Year, by the way. And I'm looking forward to a new year filled with hope, even though we are still going through a tough time and there's a lot of hard stuff going on that we have to witness. I know that as the year goes by, things will improve, especially in immigration with the Biden administration coming in. So now is the time to jump on it because you never know what after the next 4 years, what's going to come after that. So jump on getting the legal advice you need, getting on top of your application. But before you do, as I said before, get legal advice first to make sure you don't make any devastating mistakes and then move forward from there. But stay ahead of the game so that you can take advantage of this time that I anticipate is going to be a much better year for immigration, especially with the promised reversal of a lot of the negative restrictions that happened under the Trump administration. So definitely get on top of that and plan to get your legal status this year. Plan for that. Make that a priority because it's important. It could change your life. It change your family's life. So, but what you can do is follow me, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and then wait for me the notification to go live to ask that question. All right. Have a good one, guys. Bye.